The day began with the kind of quiet that feels heavier than noise, the kind that presses against the chest and reminds a person of everything they have lost. Arjun Mehta sat alone at a small roadside tea stall as the sun climbed into the pale blue sky, his hands wrapped around a chipped glass of steaming tea, staring at a world that seemed to keep moving without him. He had not planned to stop there. He never planned much anymore. Life, after all, had taught him that plans were fragile things, easily broken by a single phone call, a single night, a single absence that never healed. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Matters, because stories like this exist to remind us that even the most broken mornings can become beginnings. Arjun was 38 and already felt much older. His shoulders carried the invisible weight of years spent trying to be strong for someone who was no longer there. The tea stall stood near a quiet park, bathed in morning light, with birds hopping along the pavement and shopkeepers lifting metal shutters for another ordinary day. For everyone else, it was just another morning. For Arjun, mornings were the hardest. Nights allowed grief to hide in dreams, but mornings demanded he wake up and remember. Remember the laughter that once filled his small apartment. Remember the way someone used to tease him for drinking tea too slowly. Remember how silence had replaced everything. He worked as a city bus mechanic, a job that left grease under his fingernails and exhaustion in his bones, but it paid enough to keep the lights on. His life had narrowed into routines that required little thought. Wake up before dawn. Make tea. Go to work. Come back to an empty home. Eat. Sleep. Repeat. Friends had drifted away, unsure of what to say to a man whose grief clung to him like a shadow. Family lived far away and called less often as time passed. Arjun never blamed them. He barely answered the phone anyway. That morning, he had chosen the tea stall because his apartment felt unbearable. The walls there echoed too loudly. The tea stall at least gave him the illusion of company, even if no one noticed him. He took a slow sip, letting the warmth travel down his throat, and closed his eyes for a moment, pretending that peace was something he could still recognize. That was when he felt it. Not a sound, not a touch, but a presence. A subtle shift in the air, like when clouds pass over the sun. When he opened his eyes, he saw 3 small figures standing a few steps away from his table. 3 little girls, identical in a way that made them look like reflections of one another. Same dark hair tied into uneven ponytails, same oversized school uniforms. Same worn shoes dusted with the color of the road. They looked no older than 7 or 8, and yet there was something in their eyes that felt far older than their years. They did not speak at first. They simply stood there, close together, hands brushing as if afraid to separate. Arjun frowned slightly, unsure why they were staring at him. He looked around, expecting to see a parent nearby, but there was no one. The tea vendor was busy with another customer. The park bench behind them was empty. The street moved on, indifferent. Then the smallest of the 3 stepped forward, her movements hesitant but determined. She leaned closer, her voice barely more than breath, and asked him to pretend he was their father. The words landed softly, yet they shook something deep inside him, something he had kept locked away for years. Arjun froze, his glass of tea hovering halfway to his lips, his heart suddenly pounding as if it remembered how to feel. He should have said no. Any sensible adult would have. He did not know these children. He had no idea where they came from or what they wanted. But when he looked at their faces, he saw something that logic could not explain. He saw fear carefully hidden behind courage. He saw hope stretched thin. He saw the same loneliness that haunted him every morning staring back at him through 3 pairs of eyes. Before he realized it, he nodded. The relief that washed over their faces was immediate and overwhelming. Their shoulders relaxed, their hands loosened, and for a brief moment, they smiled. Not the carefree smiles of children without worries, but the grateful smiles of those who had been heard. They sat down near him, careful not to touch, as if afraid that the illusion might break if they did. Arjun felt strangely protective, even though he knew nothing about them. He asked their names, and they told him they were Arohi, Kavya, and Meher. Triplets, they explained, as if that fact alone justified everything about their existence. They spoke in hushed voices, glancing around as they talked, and slowly, carefully, their story unfolded. They lived in a government-run shelter on the edge of the city, a place overcrowded and underfunded, where children learned early not to expect much. Their mother had died 2 years earlier, and their father had disappeared long before that. Some days, the shelter felt safe. Other days, it felt like a reminder that no one belonged to them. That morning, a new caretaker had arrived, a woman with sharp words and colder eyes, and the girls had run. They had run without a plan, without money, without knowing where to go. All they knew was that they were terrified of being separated, terrified of being sent somewhere alone. When they saw Arjun sitting there, alone with his tea and his tired eyes, something about him felt familiar. Something felt gentle. They did not know why they trusted him. They only knew that for a few minutes. They wanted to feel like someone's children. Arjun listened, his chest tightening with every word. He recognized their fear. He recognized the way loss made children grow up too fast. He also recognized the dangerous line he was standing on. He was not their father. He had no right to pretend. And yet, when the tea vendor glanced over suspiciously and asked if the girls were bothering him, Arjun heard himself say they were with him. Those words changed everything. The vendor smiled, nodded, and went back to his work. The girls exhaled as one. Arjun felt something shift inside him, something he had buried along with his past. Responsibility. Purpose. He finished his tea slowly, his mind racing. He could not take them home. He could not solve their lives in a single morning. But he also could not simply walk away. He decided to walk them back to the shelter. The journey was longer than he expected, not in distance, but in meaning. As they walked through streets brightened by full daylight, the city revealed itself in layers. Children in clean uniforms laughing with friends. Mothers holding hands with toddlers. Fathers rushing to work, barely glancing at the world around them. For Arohi, Kavya, and Meher, it was a world observed from the outside. For Arjun, it was a reminder of everything he had lost and everything he had avoided. At the shelter, the caretaker's relief quickly turned into suspicion. Questions were asked. Explanations were demanded. Arjun stood firm, his voice steady in a way that surprised even him. He spoke of finding the girls alone, of concern, of responsibility. The shelter staff took the girls inside, promising that they would be safe, but the girls clung to Arjun until the last possible moment, their fingers digging into his shirt as if letting go might erase him. That night, Arjun could not sleep. His apartment felt different now, louder somehow. He kept seeing their faces, hearing their whispered request echoing in his mind. Pretend. The word stayed with him. Pretend had turned into something real far too quickly. Days passed, then weeks. Arjun found himself returning to the shelter under the excuse of checking on them. He brought fruit, old storybooks, small toys he claimed were extras. The staff watched him carefully at first, but his consistency softened their doubts. The girls lit up every time they saw him, their joy unfiltered, their trust absolute. They called him uncle at first, then stopped using any title at all, as if naming the bond might risk losing it. Arjun learned about their routines, their fears, their dreams. Arohi loved drawing houses with gardens she had never seen. Kavya was endlessly curious, asking questions about buses and engines and how things worked. Meher was quieter, observing everything with eyes that missed nothing, her silence filled with thought. They were different and the same. 3 lives shaped by the same loss, yet responding to it in their own ways. As his attachment grew, so did his fear. He knew the system. He knew that children like them were often adopted separately, sent to different homes, different cities, different futures. The thought of them being torn apart felt unbearable. He began to consider things he had never allowed himself to think before. Adoption, parenthood, a life that included laughter and chaos and responsibility. But Arjun was alone. His income was modest. His apartment was small. His heart, though full of love, was still healing. Social workers reminded him gently but firmly of the challenges. Raising 1 child was hard. Raising 3 was overwhelming. Raising 3 children with trauma was something else entirely. Arjun struggled in silence. He worked extra shifts. He cut back on everything unnecessary. He attended counseling sessions recommended by the shelter, confronting grief he had long avoided. He spoke to his family, to friends he had lost touch with, rebuilding bridges he had burned unintentionally. Some supported him. Some doubted him. All warned him that love might not be enough. The turning point came one afternoon when a prospective adoptive couple visited the shelter. They were kind, well-dressed, and clearly capable. They wanted one child. Just one. The girls were lined up, told to smile, told to behave. Arjun watched from a distance as Arohi tried to be brave. Kavya asked too many questions, and Meher stood perfectly still, her face unreadable. When the couple left, having chosen none of them that day, the girls broke down in a way that shattered something inside him. That night, Arjun made his decision. The process was long and painful. Paperwork, home inspections, interviews that felt like trials, doubts that crept in during the quiet hours. There were moments when he wanted to give up, when the weight of responsibility felt crushing. But every time he thought of walking away, he remembered that morning tea, the whispered plea, and the way 3 small lives had trusted him without reason. Months later, on a bright daytime morning much like the one where it all began, Arjun stood outside the shelter with trembling hands. The city hummed around him, alive and indifferent. The doors opened, and Arohi, Kavya, and Meher walked toward him carrying small bags filled with everything they owned. They looked unsure, hopeful, terrified, and brave all at once. Arjun knelt down, his eyes filled with tears he no longer tried to hide. He did not pretend this time. He did not have to. Their new life was not perfect. There were tantrums and nightmares, school meetings and scraped knees, moments of doubt and exhaustion. There were also mornings filled with laughter, evenings crowded around a small table, drawings taped to walls, and a sense of belonging that slowly settled into all of them. Arjun learned that being a father was not about having all the answers. It was about staying, even when it was hard. As the years passed, the girls grew. They carried their past with them, but it no longer defined them. Arjun grew too, discovering strength he never knew he had. The man who once drank tea alone now woke up to chaos and noise and purpose. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe even a little more in the power of kindness and unexpected family, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who need them. Before the ending, a special request. Comment the word kindness if you believe one small act can change many lives. On some mornings, Arjun still visited that same tea stall. Only now, 3 voices argued over sugar and biscuits beside him, the sun shining down on a family that began with a whisper and grew into something real.